So, for all of you and to our video audience, welcome to Laketon Bethel. Today I am not recording in Cancun. I'm right back at Laketon Bethel. And wanted to announce a few things. First of all, my name is Sherwin. I'm the pastor here. We have two services every Sunday, one at 9 and one at 11. And what we're going to do is start a Bible study on March 2. It's a Wednesday night. I'm going to call it Merit to Mercy. And it's going to meet for 6 weeks. There will be pizza included to be in that section of the auditorium, just like it has been the last few times. And then on Easter Sunday, we want to do a Welcome Back Sunday. Now, I know last year I said, well, by Easter, this COVID business will be gone. I was a little bit wrong on that. But it is declining rapidly, and so we want to have that as a Welcome Back Sunday. The consistory voted this week to serve donuts on Easter Sunday. So you'll have coffee and donuts, and that's enough to get some folks in the door, I'm sure of that. Today we're going to talk about losing our marbles. And important thing that you know that when you enroll at Western Theological Seminary, which is a seminary I went to on the campus of Hope College in Holland, they give you a bag of marbles. It's kind of an interesting thing. And every time you complete a class, you take one of the marbles out of the bag. And as soon as you've lost all your marbles, you become an ordained pastor. It's a wonderful thing. And that's worked well. But I want to talk today about what to do if you have friends or relatives who are just plain losing it. You know, I've got an old friend who's suicidal. And how do you help somebody like that? I know of another guy who's getting into methamphetamines. How do you help somebody like that? Another who's getting real close to having an affair. And still another who's drinking way too much and driving while drunk. So what do you do if your friend is losing it? You know, he or she is on the crazy train and is about to go off the rails. What do you do? What do you do if you see somebody you really care about who's making huge mistakes that's going to cost him or her dearly in the future? And you want to help, but you don't know how. What do you do? Well, Paul gives us some very good advice in Galatians chapter 6, and we're going to look at that today. Now, just a reminder of our second core value. Our second core value is the Bible, and we say it's the final authority for faith and practice. And we'll study it with open minds and the best scholarship available. That's a tough one on some of Paul's letters. This letter to the Galatians is one of those. It seems like Paul gets in a hurry when he gets to the end of his letters and kind of writes some things that are really hard to translate. Very difficult. So this one's going to take some interpretation. Now, I don't like any of the English translations of Galatians 6. I think they're clumsy. So I thought to translate it myself, but then I ran out of time, so I didn't do that. But the Message paraphrase, I think, is the best one on Galatians 6. So we're going to use that today, but even that needs some interpretation. And as I studied it, I did so with the Greek text right next to me. And we're just going to jump right in and dig into this thing. It starts off with this sentence. He says, "Live creatively, friends." Now, the problem is that this line is not in the Greek text. There's no hint of it being there. I'm not sure why the paraphraser put it there. He probably meant that we need to find creative ways to live out the commandment of Jesus, to love one another. So he's looking at that. How do you love your friends in the most difficult of situations? Now, the guy who did the paraphrase of the Message is no longer with us, so I can't ask him. But I think that's what he had in mind. Now, how can you creatively help someone who's losing it? And then the next sentence is, if someone falls into sin, forgivingly restore him, saving your critical comments for yourself. You might be needing forgiveness before the day's out. That's not a bad translation, but I don't like it, that phrase, if someone falls into sin. And here's why, because the normal Greek word for sin is hamartia. And Paul doesn't use the word hamartia here. He uses a different word. It's paraptoma. And paraptoma, you've all seen just lately. It's when somebody's on an icy path and they slip off of it. You know, I saw a Amazon delivery driver, a big old boy, lay flat on his back in my driveway not too long ago. And I told him I was the only one that saw it, so it was okay, and he was grateful for that. But it does happen. It's slipping off the path, off of an icy sidewalk or a narrow path. But that's pretty much what this means, this paraptoma, is going off the path. Now, I like to ride on the bike trail, especially the one that goes north here, and it's really a nice ride. I only did it about 3 times this past summer because, you know, exercise interferes with my gluttony so bad, but I was trying. And going off the path is a safe way to interpret if someone falls into sin, the phrase here. Because everyone goes off the path from time to time. When I ride on that path, I've usually got earbuds in, I'm listening to an audiobook, and I'm not always paying attention to the path itself. And some of my exits have not been perfectly gracious, I can tell you that. Sometimes I would go right off the path and wonder what in the world I was doing. Secondly, if we look at what Paul says to do for someone who goes off the path, he says to forgivingly restore them. So picture the bike path, and as you go north on this bike path here, you go past some property that has big no trespassing signs right on the fence. And just picture someone going off the path, crashing into that no trespassing part of the forbidden property. Paul says to help them get back on the path. That's what we're called to do. Save your critical comments for yourself. It is not helpful to scold someone for going off the path. Can you imagine you've gone off the path, you've crashed your bicycle, and someone comes up to you and says, "Don't be so stupid, stay awake, stay on the..." That's not going to be helpful. It's rarely helpful to scold someone. Critical comments just don't do much good. It's like shooting the wounded, and it just adds to the misery of the person who's gone off the path. The church historically has been really bad about that. Save your critical comments for yourself. Third, Paul reminds us that someday we might be needing help before the day is done. See, because it's easy to stray from the path. I know from experience, just for a couple of seconds of not paying attention, and you're off the path. I carry some scars on me that are over 50 years old from going off the path in a place called Oak Grove State Park on the western border of Iowa. As a kid, I was going to see how fast I could do it. And I found out that big oak trees they win when you crash into them. And I still got some scars on me because of that. And not long ago in Whitehall, I had bought a new bike. I put it together myself. Well, I am not a professional person to put a bike together. But I put this bike together, riding around Whitehall with my son Joey, and I wanted to pass him. So I, leaned on the pedals, and the handlebar just popped right out. And Joey looked at me and he goes, "You're going down, Dad." Yep, I did. Fortunately, I made it to a grassy spot to go down on. But it's easy to go off the path. We all go off the path. So we need to cut each other some slack and help each other when it happens. Now, Paul talks about this next. He says, stoop down and reach out to those who are oppressed. Share their burdens, and so complete Christ's law. If you think you're too good for that, You are badly deceived. So reach out to those who need help. Share the burdens, because then you complete Christ's law, which is the law of love. And if you think you're too good for that, well, then you're the one who's off the path. He goes on and says this. He says, make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you've been given. Then sink yourself into that. Don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. I like the way he says that. Sink yourself into the work that's in front of you. Don't be discouraged by COVID or anything else that comes along. That doesn't change your calling. Sink yourself into the work that's right in front of you. And then don't be impressed with yourself. Don't compare yourself with others. Don't be saying, well, he goes off the path way more than I do. That's just not cool. Do the best you can with your own life. And it's like he's saying, remember, there's only one bike on the path that you can control, and you can't control that one all the time, not somebody else's. See, the key is to not judge. And those of you who know me a long time know that that's really a core value. Support people as much as you can. Now, sometimes when people go off the path, they don't want your help. But if they do, it's important to have a way to help them. And several years ago, the Reformed Church spent a lot of money teaching pastors how to do spiritual life coaching. And I took the class. Excuse me. It was, a couple of weeks long, and they did it at the headquarters in Grand Rapids. And I learned how to do this coaching thing, and I modified it a little bit to fit the way I do things and the way things work around here. So I call it the GOAT method. And I wanted to share it with you just so that you can see how it works. If you want to help someone, this is a fairly effective way of doing it. Now, the GOAT method says to just picture somebody who's fallen off the bike path. You ask them what their goal is. Now, sometimes people will say, well, I just want to talk about it, and that's fine. Sometimes listening is the best therapy you can give somebody. But if they have a goal of, say, they want to get back on the path, they want to do X number of miles a day, whatever, that's a good thing. So you ask them what their goal is. If their marriage is falling apart, what's your goal? Do you want to save the marriage? Do you want to have a quick, painless exit? What do you want to do? You ask them what their goal is. Then you list the obstacles. What is going to prevent you from reaching that goal? You find everything possible that could prevent you from getting to that goal, because that makes the goal more realistic. You help folks figure out what can be done. For instance, if I wanted to be an NFL quarterback, that would be an unrealistic goal. Well, maybe not for the Lions, but any other team. That might be a problem. So I need to, list the obstacles to that. I'm a fat old man that doesn't make the best quarterback. Okay, now, then the third part, the A, is the action steps. What things can I do that'll push me closer to that goal? And it's amazing how well this works. Once you get folks to write this down, and then your role is basically to encourage them to keep the process going. The T is a timeline. When are you going to take these steps? And amazingly, this simple thing works, so I wanted to share it with you. And just remember that not everybody's going to want to do this. Sometimes they don't. And then you just relax and make yourself available so that you're there when they do want to take some steps to make some change. But it absolutely works. Then you can help them with this process once they get on it. Sometimes people don't want your help. Sometimes they just want to complain. Sometimes they just want to let you know how much they're hurting. And that's okay. Be patient. And be there when they change their mind. Eventually they're going to get tired of sitting beside the bike path and want to get back on it and get going again. So here's the summary of Paul's teaching today. It's a typical teaching of Paul. It's good stuff. If I was going to summarize it, it'd be like this. Don't judge. Help instead. Okay? Somebody goes off the path. You don't need to put him down. You need to help him get back up and get back on the path. When your friend is losing it, be a blessing in their life, in his or her life. Don't be a part of the problem. And then, third, keep in mind your own brokenness, because you might be going off the path fairly soon. Now, if you do this process, if you live according to these words of Paul, you will then fulfill the law of Christ, as he says. You're going to be loving your friend and giving your friend the best help that you possibly can. So you'll fulfill the law of Christ, and your friend will be blessed. And those are some very important things that we can all do, very simple things that we can all do as followers of Jesus in a world that desperately needs it. That's all I have to say about that today. So to our video audience, as always, thanks for listening. And to all of you, thanks for listening. If you have any more questions about it, you know where to find me. Oh, yeah!